Okay, one of the things that students get really confused about is the steps by which Hitler came to power. How did he become Chancellor? Now, I know on the face of it, it actually seems quite confusing, but actually it's very simple. And the way I teach it, it has four steps. There are four things to remember, four stages by which Hitler becomes Chancellor. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the story first of all, and then I'm going to break it down into those four steps for you. Now, what we have to remember is that after the July 1932 elections, the Nazi Party were the single largest party, but they were not a majority. Now, when Hitler became the leader of the largest party, he demanded from Hindenburg that he became Chancellor, and Hindenburg refused. Hindenburg didn't like Hitler, called him an Austrian corporal, bearing in mind that Hindenburg was an old-school First World War army general, of the old order. He liked things the way they were done traditionally, and Hitler was some Austrian upstart. Hindenburg was very suspicious of Hitler, and he refused. So what he did was he allowed the current Chancellor, von Papen, that's a small v, and it's kind of like a German thing for an aristocratic member, a member of the aristocracy, von Papen, P-A-P-E-N, okay? He said, von Papen, you carry on as Chancellor. And the problem is that von Papen didn't have support in the Reichstag. So what von Papen did was he used Article 48, or decree, emergency powers, to pass laws. Now, obviously, this was not really very, very popular, and he had very little support in the Reichstag. So it became clear that he couldn't govern properly, so another election was called for November 1932. Now this is very key, because again the Nazis come out as the largest party, but crucially, the share of the vote that the Nazis won actually decreased. So whilst they're still the largest party, the amount of support for them fell. I think it fell by something like 2 million votes, which equated to 34 seats in the Reichstag. Now, this is quite important. Again, Hitler wanted to be Chancellor. He was refused. Hitler threatened suicide because he thought the Nazi Party support was just dropping and dropping and dropping. And Hindenburg refused to appoint Hitler, and instead he appointed one of his advisors, von Schleicher, again small V-O-N, capital S-C-H-L-E-I-C-H-E-R, S-C-H-L-E-I-C-H-E-R, okay? Now, von Schleicher von Schleicher became Chancellor, and von Papen remained as an advisor to Hindenburg. But von Schleicher still couldn't solve the problem. He didn't have support in the Reichstag. He faced exactly the same problems as von Papen. Now, so it's obvious that the Weimar Republic, or the system of government in the Weimar Republic, was not working properly. So, what happened was von Papen met with rich industrialists, and they did a behind-the-scenes deal. And they said, look, let's appoint Hitler as Chancellor, von Papen as Vice-Chancellor, and von Papen said, I will control Hitler. I'll be his puppet master. Yeah, he's just some Austrian corporal. He's nothing. I'm clever and I'm an old-school politician. I'll be able to pull his strings. So, Hindenburg, to everybody's surprise, appointed Hitler as Chancellor in January 1933. Now, and von Papen was Vice-Chancellor. Hitler was only allowed, I think it was 2 Nazis in the cabinet. And no matter if it was 2 or more, it's a very small, a minority of Nazis. He's Chancellor, but he's still not got complete control. And that really is how he becomes Chancellor. Now, initially it looks a bit confusing because there's all these German names in there, von Schleicher, von Papen, Hindenburg, Hitler, and all this malarkey. Very simply, 4 stages. Stage 1. July 1932. The Nazis were the largest party, and not majority. Hitler demanded the role of Chancellor, but Hindenburg refused, and Hindenburg appointed von Papen, but he had no support, and so he ruled by decree. 1. Hitler wins the election, demands Chancellor, von Papen is given it, but von Papen has no support. Easy. Okay. Second stage. New election called because von Papen has no power, no authority in Reichstag, no support. And in that election, the Nazis still the largest party, but their share of the vote falls by 2 million. Okay, second stage, 2 million people less vote for Hitler. Hitler threatened suicide, and Hindenburg appointed von Schleicher. Third stage. Von Schleicher had to resign within a month because he had no support in the Reichstag. And so von Papen does a deal with industrialists and Hindenburg. And stage 4 is Hindenburg, von Papen, industrialists and army generals meet secretly and persuade Hindenburg that Hitler should be Chancellor and they'll control him. So stage 4 is January 1933, Hitler is appointed Chancellor. With only a few Nazis in the cabinet and von Papen as Vice-Chancellor, and the hope is that he will be a puppet. Alright? Unfortunately, what happens is Hitler doesn't want to be a puppet, and when he becomes Chancellor, as you see from the next episode of this, the first thing he does is call for a new election, because Hitler wants a majority, because he wants to end the Weimar Republic and establish a Nazi dictatorship. 4 stages. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Rewind this, make some notes on that, read it up. It's actually not that hard. Set it out as a big flow diagram so you can see how one thing leads to something else, which leads to something else. Don't forget to include your connectives in between. Due to this, consequently, subsequently, and then what you have is a fully explained, interlinked answer. And actually you're prioritising as well, because you're picking the most important, the first stage, and seeing how the others are linked to it. And if you do that in the examination, that's a top level mark. Interlink and prioritise. Okay? Use your connectives. Good luck. Bye-bye.